Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to thank you for joining us for today's Young Security Professional webinar on school security, sponsored by Access Communications. My name is Brandon Savage. I'm the Senior VP of Customer Experience at DevCon Security, and I'm chair of the ESA's Young Security Professionals. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. All callers will be muted for the duration of the webinar. So if you have some questions during the webinar, we will be having a Q&A session at the end. You can submit those online off to the right-hand side. So feel free to submit those questions, and we'll address those at the end. Additionally, a recording of the webinar and a copy of the PowerPoint presentation will be available in the YSP resource library on esaweb.org. So moving forward, today's webinar will be presented by Steve Cifaro, the Industry Liaison and Strategic Channel Manager at Access Communications. Mr. Cifaro is a frequent speaker and contributor at industry events and forums. He is a member of the ASIS Physical Security Council and is the chairman of that council's education subcommittee and is responsible for consistent workshop content. Now, he's also a corporate member of BICSI. This is SIA's CCTV Industry Group and Digital Video Standards Committee. He's also instrumental in developing the Access Video Hosting System program, which provides video monitoring as an internet service. And he has special recognition from the Department of Homeland Security for his work in the video quality and public safety effort. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Hey, thanks so much, Brandon and Jacqueline. I'm really honored to do this for ESA, YSP, a lot of letters there, but you know what? You guys have the most successful young professional in security program in the industry, so congrats for that, and thanks again for letting Access Communications get involved. As Brandon mentioned, I also work with another key association that ESA is also working with that's full of education practitioners, and that's American Society for Industrial Security. And this class, this session, actually grew out of a conversation that we had with the other Physical Security Council members that are security system designers. So, and what's kind of interesting is the title actually came from those folks who were practitioners, and it was kind of a very interesting genesis of this, and you'll see very, very quickly where it came from. So basically what we're going to do is talk about, we're going to do two parts of this. We're going to do something a little different and not just hit you with all sorts of technology and tell you where it's relevant, but what we're going to do is talk about some of the aspects, key aspects into the school security plan. So give you folks that are designers and people that commission these school security systems a view into the mind of the practitioner. So you get an opportunity to talk in terms of what some of their needs are. And you know what? That's probably one of the most important things. You see here a block of a whole bunch of different words here. You know, safe passage to school, very, very big issue. Use of security systems, the teamwork that's on campus, crisis management, working with first responders, and above all, safety. So all of these aspects combine to work together and make the best school and safety security plan. So one conversation, this is the genesis of this, that happened at a recent school management meeting. What happened was one of the practitioners was actually attending a student-teacher meeting in which just happened to be there picking up grades for his daughter, and was asked to join, which is always really good when you have groups of stakeholders joining the conversation. And school security came up. You know, the topic of school security is always a very big topic that generates a lot of interest and often heavy discussion. And you know, some of the questions that were asked, you know, are some of the basics enough? Can you just lock doors? Sometimes that's not a good idea, which you know about. Can you just control access? Can you have video surveillance, emergency communications, which, by the way, those concepts right there are probably some of the biggest used systems in school security. But nonetheless, that together with school safety patrols, is that going to be enough? And what came out was, the question is, what we really don't have at that school is we don't have a plan. There isn't a person that's responsible for coordination of an incident. So this particular school was lacking, had the technology there, had the foresight to budget and to deploy the technology, but hadn't trained people on how to use it, and also didn't have the personnel to monitor the system. So as most lower schools in K through 12s don't have the capability of affording a person a full-time monitor, so they're reacting to crises in a forensic manner or in a review process. So, are there different communications protocols for emergencies? And here's a big thing. Are you ignoring this? Are you ignoring these aspects? I really encourage you, if you have sons and daughters, next time you go to school, ask them about their school security system. They'll either have one or two answers. They'll either want to share it with you or not. And really, I really encourage a lot of free exchange of information. And you know what? You're all security professionals, and you're an excellent resource for them to use. So it's important to have that type of information sharing. So probably the most important thing is to really take the steps to a sound school safety and security plan. And it really starts with determining which are the threats and vulnerabilities. We'll call this TVA for short. What resources do you have? And the security and safety practitioners on campus are going to accumulate some of the data that they might have, much like a security practitioner does in the formation of what's known as a security master plan. So, they take all this data and in the security master plan and put it in different categories. There's a lot of software that allows them to manage all of that intelligence so that they can bring it up later, whether it's standard operating procedures, whether it's deployment levels, whether it's crime stats. But the whole thing is, it's important to have all these basics. The operating procedures, what to do in the event of an incident, what to do in the event of a crisis, what are the steps that you go through. Equally important, a lot of folks forget that the recovery is just as important. The development of school safety plan, it's of the greatest importance. Once you link it, once you develop it, you can link it to human resources and staff it, and then purchase the most useful systems around. You choose the technology, and you make it work for you. You don't select it first and have it, the tail wagging the dog, so to speak. And I really encourage each and every one of you. I'm sure we have a lot of ESA members that are used to deploying these systems. One thing that I think you'll get a lot of, score really a lot of points with your school faculty, whether it's your superintendent, facilities manager, or a school safety and security officer. You'll score a lot of points with them if you take the time and ask them what are their major pain points and where you can fit in to that plan. So be responsible, and part of that responsibility is finding a person that is responsible. So when you're dealing with the school safety person, they have to have a responsible person that's on staff at any given point in time. In a lot of cases, some of this video surveillance might be used forensically or post-incident, and nobody's monitoring the system. So you'll see some of the tools that are going to help you, or rather help them review the events in real time or in near real time, often just 30 seconds after the fact, and improve the ability to successfully conduct an investigation about 80% less of time. So there's this balance of a lot of people, I'm going to talk about this proactive versus reactive or review. And one of the aspects of both of these types of sensors, whether they're video analytics, whether they're fence sensors, whether they're other door position alarms, burglar alarms, they're going to give you quick answers to first responders that are coming on the scenes, and more on what the first responders need. So what's interesting is that there's a new site, there's a new website. Take this down, or don't take it down as the case may be, because you're going to get a copy of this presentation, which, by the way, is pretty big, so it's going to take a little while for you to download. It's about 350 megabytes. Sorry, Brandon and Jacqueline, I didn't tell you about that, but it's going to be rather large for you to download because it includes some of the animations and videos. I wanted to embed all of this stuff. But firstresponder.gov is a really interesting website. Keep an eye on this as it gets populated. This is a site started by the Department of Homeland Security to identify the 6 disciplines in first responders. A lot of folks think that it's just public safety or law enforcement, but really what it incorporates is both EMS, law enforcement, fire, explosives, hazmat, search, and rescue. All of these aspects correspond to emergencies on campus or on your K through 12 that could happen. There could be a child missing. There could be a chemical spill. There could be an explosive threat. There could be fire. And there could be an active shooter. So all of these aspects are actually well-defined, and different parts of this, and it tells you how to communicate with different agencies that have representation in this first responder category. So it's important that each and every one of you folks as security designers understand how these systems communicate to those corresponding folks. So you're developing this threat and vulnerability assessment, and one of the things that a lot of folks make the mistake of is designing for some of the things that don't happen too often. And this one security designer said it very, very well in the same conversation that we had at the very start. So the real concern is that we have to ensure that the schools understand actual risks, all the varied risks, some of which I just went through that correspond to those first responders, including that God forbid, a mass casualty event. It's going to help ensure that decisions are made based upon quantifiable risk and not necessarily just emotional connections, and consider those events that are going to be more frequent than others. So that is the frequency of these threats is part of your threat and vulnerability assessment, and so very, very important to consider in terms of the development of the solutions that support the school security. So on a lot of cases, here's another mistake that happens. There's a plan in progress, and people have this knee-jerk reaction of stopping the plan and changing the course. So if the security master planning is actually getting done on campus, work with it. Let those professionals do their job. And one of the worst things that you can do is kind of say, no, you're not doing it right, but rather offer an alternative opinion that could be molded and be one of more of a collaborative nature, then set these safety and security professionals on a different direction. Let them do their job. That's probably the best piece of advice that I have for a lot of folks that are in progress. Unfortunately, a lot of schools, after Sandy Hook took that poor direction and stopped a lot of their consulting efforts to do security master planning underway. And, they're probably going back to the basics. So going back to the basics is important, and staying that course, avoiding the knee-jerk reaction, and it can often lead to those wrong decisions, putting money where you shouldn't, and understanding that the whole purpose of this process is to guide and educate. So, understanding that you learn not only through mistakes, but through the process. So one of the first things that's going to be useful for you and the security administrator or facility manager is actually to walk the site and to do an assessment and to bring people in that are skilled in different categories. So, If I were doing a school safety and security plan, I would have somebody that is familiar with the local fire codes, because what's going to happen is anything that you deploy in terms of an access control system is going to have to interface to the fire alarm or be subject to the authority having jurisdiction. So that's going to be extraordinarily important. Have a video surveillance expert there too, so that they're going to understand what the most cost-effective video device that's going to be on campus, and if some of the newer analytics are going to help you in the deployment. And then the third party, I would actually have somebody that's familiar with voice over IP, especially if the school has deployed a voice over IP system. And what's interesting is that you're going to learn that unified communications, a lot of these systems, which a lot of you folks are starting to get into, are offering an opportunity to use some existing technologies through solution providers for these UC systems and do the mass communications on campus. So part of it is going to be a consideration to upgrade, replace, or keep, for these solutions. And the upgrade path is actually very promising. In a lot of cases, the manufacturers and distributors and all of these folks are there ready to enumerate the upgrade path. You are. And one of the things that the school security professionals need to understand, and it's good for you to communicate this, that quite often you can do just a quick, it's almost like a little adjustment, a little fit kit, if you will, to use a bicycling term, tighten up some existing systems and equipment and get them going in terms of a little bit better improved existing system deployment rather than a total replacement. The reason for this is because sometimes taking the upgrade path is going to outperform that start from scratch solution. You can deploy real advanced things like IP video over the existing infrastructure and have that upgrade path in place, and it's really a very quick learning curve. The quicker that they can start using it, the quicker they're going to be able to integrate it into the security master plan. So understanding that that could be extremely favorable. So get creative on how you use upgrades. There's lots of different technologies which I'll get into that are going to allow you to do that. And one of them, with regard to IP video, it gets easier and lower in cost. In fact, we just came out with a high-density blade that fits into a rack that it essentially can replace a matrix system and allow you to use that existing coaxial cable and put Ethernet right over that coax. You also can do this on an individual channel basis. So it allows the use of that existing coaxial infrastructure, and it really gives you those three major advantages in IP video. And you know this already. You know that with regard to IP video, you get higher resolution, and HDTV IP cameras deliver that, and it especially in the K through 12 case, you've got forensic video, so you're using it after the fact, so you've got to take the steps to give a better video at the outright. So this can be delivered over the existing coax. The second way is by using some of these techniques that are going to allow you to search for incident video. So some of these forensic-based analytics are geared towards conducting investigation. So they're going to shorten your investigation time, and it's going to help both the security force and first responders. And then lastly, this term smart IP camera is really gaining a lot of popularity with recent city security events, especially with things like license plate capture, but also for some of the technologies that are termed abnormal behavior detection. So I'd like to stick with some more of the mature ones, but I'm going to give you an overview on all of these technologies. Communications is so very important. If we had to name the three technologies that are most important in campus and K through 12 security, it is definitely communications. video surveillance, and some personnel tracking and mass notification. So, so the question is, are there enough communications protocols, and does that stand capable between the office and classroom? So in a lot of cases, if they're deploying voice over IP systems, the UC systems have built-in mass notification or emergency comm built into them, that you can use. They may not be at the level that they're friendly for first responders, and they're not integrated into the video system, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? Solution providers come along and they can add on to this. So the telephony solution providers are going to be very useful for you folks as security system integrators for you to work with, or you can gain that knowledge by getting trained in voice over IP and start deploying voice over IP solutions. That's going to be really good for you. There's also some standalone systems that I'm going to get involved in. I'll give you one, and here's one that's really interesting. This is actually getting deployed a great deal in campuses. It's been deployed also in transit applications. So essentially, this alerts system is very interesting. It allows you to opt into it, and it will give you, allow the individual, it could be a teacher or a student, to report a problem on their smartphone, and what will happen is their location is determined, and the cameras that are connected to the system that are nearby their location are automatically activated to a command center. So MBTA uses this. The folks in Boston Mass Transit, over Atlanta, they use this. They actually use a combination of private and public cloud to deploy this. The folks in DC Metro are looking to do this, and there are several campuses that are looking to deploy this. This is going to allow you to opt in. There's a number of different opt-in mobile device solutions that are going to gain popularity, especially with Bring Your Own Device. For many years, a text-only cloud-based service called SendWordNow really dominated the market and still continues to. This is the first, this alert system is the first to link video with emergency messaging. So it gives you a nice incidence in progress. Ed, who runs this company, actually reported that I think there were over 10,000 hits that were reports after the Boston bombing. So it was, it's something that people opt in very, very easily and can use very, very quickly. So what happens is if there are cameras on campus, it's going to know where the cameras are looking, and it'll do an automated call-up so that first responders can actually pull it up directly at the command center. So this is going to be very useful for you. You know what? What can I say? Trained people can do wonderful things, and it's true. If you don't train people, they're not necessarily going to know what to do in the event of these crises. And people handle stress in different ways, and if they're trained well, they're going to handle stress very well because they know what to do. So it's important to educate everyone on campus with this. So you as an integrator get involved with the school security professional. In a lot of cases, these project team members are going to be very useful for you to get involved in. And a lot of the schools don't even have standard operating procedures, so learn about the typical SOPs that schools will use and merge them into the technology that you're offering. The project team, to become part of that project team, you have to achieve some trust. And part of that, developing the school security plan, is to deploy this killer project team and assigning achievable goals. So it's always good to keep in mind what the most achievable goals are for you as a security integrator, if that's your position. And keep in mind that if you deliver, they're going to call on you more and more. So defining those objectives and talking about the consequences of what you're doing and what's good that you're doing, and if you're not able to achieve that, what are the consequences? Documenting is so important because you know what? If a school does not opt in for a particular technology or procedure, it's important that everyone understood why that happened. The skin in the game is so very important. So getting people to get involved is probably the most powerful thing around. And getting stakeholders to get that skin in the game really involves people to getting a vested interest. So involving all of these stakeholders, here they are. These are all the people that you're going to deal with as you do a school security system. And depending on how many sites these schools have, in some cases, if it's a county school, there might be a seat that's the authority having jurisdiction. So you're dealing with them, plus you're dealing with the field end user, who might often would be the superintendent. And you're also probably dealing with the IT department. And in some cases, you might even be dealing with some teachers. Local law enforcement, is also very, very important. You know what? We're getting towards, we're past the school budgeting deadlines. Actually, just is happening probably this week. It's appropriate that we're doing it this week. This week and next week are actually kind of the closeout of the second budget for many, many schools. But more so, an ideal time for you as an integrator for your locally available schools is to go call on them and law enforcement over the summer. And this is the time when drills are done, where they can learn more about the solutions and systems. So you'd be very surprised at how much acceptance you're going to get if you do this during the summer. You know what? They're looking for ways of improving their readiness, and the summertime is the best time frame. So it's also a good time frame to introduce some new technologies to them, which hopefully you'll enjoy as we go through them. But before I do that, there's an unfortunate thing that's happening in schools today, and there's an unfortunate trend of schools getting shut down, and there's consolidation of schools that are happening. So what's happening is that we're finding the requirement for the students to travel more and for security to be provided on the way to school. So take a look at that consideration in your area. This is actually a case study of one very large school system that is going through these different closings. And here's an overall guidance on how to approach this with these communities that are going through school closings. So you want to actually take a look at some of the safety risks along the key routes, and sometimes recommend some city security or public video surveillance, working with different communities and conducting training and interface, pick out some technologies that might be useful for block watch. And also, what I'm going to do at the closing of this is actually deliver a crime analysis concept that's going to give you an overview on some of the crime in different neighborhoods, so you can actually help in the deployment during certain time frames of higher risk. So, a lot of these underutilized schools, two very important aspects are increasing that safety technology and reviewing those schools that might have deficiencies that are now being taxed with more students. So they call them actually welcoming schools in a lot of cases. So, the originating schools and then the welcoming schools, these are the schools that are having to absorb additional children. And this is going to be so important for you to target. There are cities all throughout the United States that are going through that, and they are in dire need of school security. So, yeah, it's a business opportunity, but you also have to be very, very responsible. Not going to go through every one of these links, but here they are for you. This is further reading. There's a whole bunch of different articles, including some different recommendations on active shooter training, which, by the way, some of the different associations around here, including ASIS, offer. And we also have a few different books. Complete Guide to Physical Security. Yours truly wrote a video chapter in that book. The Digital Video Handbook, which is also a DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and Security Industry Association publication, and the Bixby Electronic Security and Safety Design Reference. So all of these are going to be excellent reading for you and help you in designers. Okay, let's take a look at trends and technologies. And this is our part 2. And before we get into part 2, I'm going to give you a kind of perspective. And part of that perspective is to consider when you're designing these solutions, whether you are proactive or reactive. Are you designing the system to be able to detect something that you're trying to stay ahead of the threat, or do you not care? I mean, obviously everybody cares about the threat, but you're caring less about the threat and more so of how you react to the threat. So asking the question, if folks that are involved with security from public safety versus campus administration had one choice for security and one only between designing the solutions to be proactive or reactive, what's interesting is that the folks in North America for public safety and security chose to be reactive. In other words, they wanted to have the best forensic investigation techniques, the fastest ways of responding to a wide range of threats. They didn't want to gamble with notification of threats they might not identify. And it's kind of interesting because proactive seems to be far sexier, and it seems to always be the choice of campus administration. So when you go into K through 12s or campus, they're always going to want something proactive. What your job is to do is to balance both. In other words, give them the tools to be able to react to a wide-ranging array of threats, and give them some tools that are going to help them review these crises and be able to react, whether it's a communications or whether it's review of physical security. One last thing, physical and cyber are related. In a lot of cases, the students can take down a network. You don't know where your cyber threat is. I'm just going to mention one technology with regard to that a little bit towards the end of this, but don't do this. Don't do this. Yes, there are a few people in the audience that are chuckling, but guess what? There are situations in which, believe it or not, critical infrastructure is well advertised. And the question is, when you're doing your initial threat and vulnerability assessment of the school, are they advertising their most critical parts? It's pretty amazing what's out there. Power plants or network infrastructure, that's probably going to be one of the most important things that you protect. But let's get on to the top 10. And here's our top 10, and we're going to relate this directly to the security on campus. So first off is big data. We're running through a lot of big data, and one of the aspects of using big data is to tag it and use metadata so that you can search. This is going to be very useful for a school securities solution. LPR is amazingly important and extraordinarily well established. The better vision that we have in today's imagers are going to allow for these plates to be scanned and for the automated analytics to be performed. I'll show you a technology with regard to that. How practitioners conduct investigations is incredibly important. So understand how your school security professionals actually conduct those investigations and learn more about the infrastructure. In a lot of these cases, the power and data infrastructure is going to determine how you're able to deploy it, where you use PoE, etc. Private and public cloud adoption is going to become greater and greater essential to deploying some of these solutions. So some of those different areas that develop these trends are listed there. Just continuing on, remote guarding is a very, very important trend. So for those schools that perhaps are in transition, might be using school security guards and don't have their own safety force, they can be augmented through the use of add-on video surveillance that's actually managed by the security guards. So a lot of you folks already provide that. And, central station automation systems can also work with local authorities and transmit public safety alarm protocol. That's what PSAP to ASAP is all about. So you can talk to the Central Station Alarm Association and learn more about how to interface some of those signals. Small systems are sometimes the best things to deploy. So you don't necessarily have to deploy a very elaborate physical access control systems. Do a single door reader, for a data center, or perhaps a camera that can record right with its own SD card instead of having to tie up the services of an expensive server. Mobility, so very important. So your system should support mobility more and more, and high quality and immersive imaging, or imaging that covers a very wide area. This is offered by lots of HDTV solutions. So those are your trends. Let's get into some of the techniques. And one of the reactive technologies that's going to be very useful to you is a way to find evidence, or a way to find incident video. After that, we'll go through some abnormal behavior detection, and then we'll go through some of how those technologies can work together with communications. So here's a technology that we call video synopsis. And I know, depending upon your connectivity speed, you're going to either see still images here or images updated periodically. But what we're seeing here are summarization of video, and video over a longer period of time that is represented within a very short period of time. So you can see, like Stuttgart, Germany, in the lower center row. This is actually a 24-hour period represented in about 30 seconds. So the way that you'd use this is you'd use this to see all the overall events and determine, hey, there's the person we're looking for. You would click on that particular, or pause it to see what the time code is, and then go to the more higher resolution video or the more detailed content. So what's great about this is you can define just the direction of people flow, as in the lower left-hand corner where you see people moving in one direction, or in the lower right-hand corner where you see vehicles moving in a single direction. So this type of application is going to be very useful for forensic review, and it's called video synopsis. Video synopsis can also have the timestamps directly on there. So you're not missing anything, but what you're doing is you're seeing an overlay of video. And it doesn't matter whether or not the view is a fisheye, 180 degrees, or a telephoto view. Either way, it's summarizing and accumulating this information and allowing you to timestamp it and then go directly to the more high-resolution feed. So this sort of thing can help investigations. Quite often, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to see a 30% improvement, but in some cases it improves it by about 80% by time. So here's abnormal detection. On the left-hand side, you see people actually in vehicles going the wrong way down highways. And in the center, if you can see the video running, you'll see a light rail system plus somebody that's decided to take a shortcut. And this is not the way you're supposed to drive, obviously. This is kind of the way we drive in Phoenix, right? What's interesting is that this is a abnormal behavior detection, so it falls into the classification of a proactive solution. So objects left behind, things of that nature. You can also set it to detect on school area crowding, so crowd movement. So all of this is going to be very useful for your needs to determine what the abnormal behaviors are that are going to be important to detect. Let's go to the next one. It's really interesting, the heat mapping, or the ability to lay down the activity tracking is going to be useful to you, because in your site survey, you're going to want to see where everybody walks. And what you can do is set up these temporary cameras, and what they'll do is they'll record the paths that people take. This is really useful in retail establishments. On the right-hand side, you see some superstores that use this technology for retail end cap promotion to detect the movement around these advertising opportunities. But you know what? In physical security applications, it has real great usage for site surveys. Low light and public surveillance is equally good. If you're able to watch the video, you're seeing this is probably going to run a little bit slower depending upon your bandwidth, but on the right-hand side, you're seeing an HDTV video that is excellent for city security. On the left side, though, it's kind of interesting. This is actually a video that was taken at 10 p.m. at night. Yes, I know, it's pretty amazing, the light response from that camera. It's called Light Finder camera. It actually won the Wall Street Journal Innovation Award about 3 months ago, and gives you real-time video and essentially full resolution in near total darkness. So it gives you, allows you to almost see in near total darkness. Excellent video surveillance solutions. So with license plate capture and recognition, this is going to be one of the most useful analytic technologies for you. What you can do is to connect and have the camera itself actually grab the license plates of individuals on site and compare it to a person of interest or a vehicle of interest list that might be available from various crime centers. So you can have these LPR systems capture plates and see who's not supposed to be on campus. This is going to be very useful for your day-to-day activities with school security. And this particular video is kind of interesting, and it's going to run a little bit more slowly, but hopefully you can see a few frames of it. And what this video is doing is it's showing license plate capture through the use of an in-car video camera, and actually allows you to decode that plate and compare it in real time with some of the plates of parents, students, and teachers that are supposed to be on campus. So you can see who's not supposed to be there. And this is very useful, quite often built into video management systems, but also present and available in video surveillance systems and an embedded platform. So you can actually connect this to the federal law enforcement NCIC computer, so it'll deliver back a response that that vehicle belongs to somebody that perhaps is a person of interest, or the vehicle is stolen, and these are going to be very useful to keep the people that you don't want on campus off campus. So that LPR system architecture is gaining a lot of popularity. Higher ed campuses are deploying this all over the place. So in the event of an accident, they're scanning plates and seeing if the vehicle or the person is wanted. One thing that's very brief on cybersecurity is authentication that I just want to make mention. Because what you can do with a new technology is actually secure the individual devices through what's known as digital authentication. So the device itself can run an authentication application internally and report to a server, and your video can't be hijacked. So what literally will happen is that it protects the content and it protects the device from hackers. So you get a much higher level of trust with this type of deployment. This is available. We're actually piloting this at Federal Law Enforcement Training Center together with another solution from Salient Systems. So there's just shoot me off an email if you want to know further about this. It's a very, very important up-and-coming technology that's going to secure all cameras. Mobility is going to be very important to you also. So mapping your campus is going to be key to knowing where your security threats are and where the emergency is. So You can use geolocation information and use these mobile apps. But you know what? If you're deploying mobility for your security force, make sure that the mobile devices have not been jailbroken or are not subject to hackers, because malware installed on some of these mobile devices is one of the most crippling things that could happen. It's amazing, but there's keyloggers that actually can record all your keystrokes for jailbroken phones and email that information to a central location. So be very, very careful when you're doing mobility. Access mobility is actually on the rise, so NFC enabling the credential that's built into your mobile device is happening. Right here in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona State University is successfully using a pilot program to deploy this. So they have NFC-enabled mobile devices and essentially using their devices as card readers, as cards. So it cuts down on credentials, and this is going to be good for identifying where your students are and having them check in. Very, very low cost. Video mobility, like I said, looking at the video surveillance is going to be really great for you, and there's so many video-based mobile devices on the market. One of the last things that I want to talk to you about is our lighting advances. And it's kind of interesting, but one of the best things that you can do in your threat and vulnerability assessment is conducting a survey, a lighting survey, but also do a little crime prevention through environmental design. It's called CEPTED. And this is something that professionals, designers do as a normal day-to-day assessment, security assessment. It reduces crime, and it allows you to deploy some of these solutions in an easier way. So we can see here that there's, in Stockholm, there was an LED lighting upgrade, but I'll show you some better images of some of the upgrades. Here's LED lighting. This is lighting before an LED lighting upgrade was done. This is in the city of Austin, a parking structure. It looks yellow to you. So that's the high-pressure sodium lighting. And now, you should be seeing this right about now, the city of Austin, Texas parking structure uses LED lighting. It looks like bright as day. So this is a fantastic way of upgrading your lighting and a really, really great way of improving your video surveillance. Here's a tunnel in Italy, and you can see the gradual upgrade from high-pressure sodium to the white LED lighting. So you can put these all over your campus. You can do auxiliary white LED lighting and overall improve the response of your video surveillance cameras, but also deter crime. And that brings us to one last topic, and this is kind of interesting. This I'm going to call the criminal calendar, and this is one of the best things that you can do for your school and understand what is the behavior of crime around a school campus. But before I do that, in the future what you're going to start seeing is video and metadata running on a camera platform. But what happens is that this metadata that's tagged at the video camera, it's going to stream that feature or tag data up to the cloud. And the whole purpose of this is during high crime activity, or what you're going to see very shortly, the period of time when crime is most to occur, you can have this data get tagged, and you can have this data stored and kept online for future use. So this technology is going to be really, really useful for you, especially with LPR. So during high crime months, you can tag all the plates within a particular area. One of those high crime months, well, guess what? There's a lot of technologies that allow you to do this, but one of the best technologies is actually good old-fashioned people that are analyzing crime stats. And what I did was I did a crime stat analysis for two cities. One of them happens to be Dallas, and one of them happened to be Phoenix. So it's ironic. ESA is headquartered right around Dallas, and Phoenix is where I am. So this is a crime stat research, and it's going to show you something interesting. In the city of Dallas, regardless of the type of crime, what we found out was that crime for any type of crime actually had its peak around July and had its lowest point around February. This is going to allow you to do those things like tagging and do LPR on a more focused manner. You can see here is business robbery. And this is actually overall a cumulative comparison of all crime types, whether it's murder, rape, business robbery, individual robbery, aggravated assault, vehicular crimes. All of these actually had a very, very repeatable peak at July, around July, August timeframe. And this is going to be useful for you as you're deploying your school security systems to actually take a look at this crime versus time for the city that your school is in, and to merge some of the technologies that are going to allow you to do it as a service, so deliver higher levels of service during certain time frames that are most vulnerable. I'll show you City of Phoenix. This is going to surprise you. There was no correlation by month. The correlation was very consistent, though, of time of day. So the time of day when it was lowest was around 0700 or 7 a.m., and highest on a consistent manner was around 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. So very interesting that crime and temporal criminology actually is a very good study for you to link that physical security, but it's not necessarily going to link it to the month or time of year or time of day. You have to pick what or work with your local law enforcement to determine what stats are actually the most relational. Okay, so that's our session, and I have got 6 minutes to entertain questions. So Brandon, Jacqueline, got any questions out there from the audience? I know I haven't been paying attention to any of the questions that
yeah, we do. So first one comes from Robert asking, what government agency has been given the authority or funds to tackle this job? It sounds like it may not be the Department of Education, the first one that would come to mind.
Okay, which to tackle the job. Okay, I'm not sure of which you're talking about, but as far as school funding is concerned, there's actually a number of different DHS grants that are funding schools. The No Child Left Behind, there's actually still some money available. There are actually websites that dedicate themselves to school security funding. And it's interesting, but at some of the school security events, there's a really good presentation that was done by a young lady by the name of Linda Love. She actually did a great session on how to find school security funding. I'll try to get that link for you that perhaps you can pass on to the membership.
Terrific. Another question from Anthony. What are your thoughts on panic buttons in schools?
Yeah, you know, panic buttons, it's kind of interesting, but you know, there are two approaches to panic buttons. In a lot of cases, the school security folks, and this is going to surprise you, a lot of school security folks just kind of say, you know what, let's just use the pull stations, the fire alarm pull stations, as an emergency instead of having to wonder where a panic button is and perhaps it's not readily available. You always know where the pull stations are. Those are always going to be at the exits or in a prominent area, gathering area, or in a high-risk location. So personally, I actually don't like them in a school setting. I think they're excellent for financial institutions where, you know, you might have, you know, robberies or holdups and your people are, you know, there might be some people that are remote and out of sight of the person that is committing the crime, and you can then actually trigger that panic button. But I typically don't like them. I think that probably one of the worst things to do is to tell somebody to attempt to hit a panic button while there's an active shooter on staff on the campus site. You absolutely don't want to put yourself at risk. However, since mobile devices are actually very, very useful, have very useful applications that can link personal emergency with location, I do recommend you consider those. So take a look at the most simplest approach, and the pull stations sometimes are the most simplest.
Terrific. Thanks, Steve. Aren't any other questions? We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Once again, thank you, Steve, for very informative content. I'd like to remind everyone that a recording of the webinar and a copy of the PowerPoint presentation will be available in the Young Security Professionals Resource Library that can be found at esaweb.org. In addition, we want to remind everyone as well to make plans, if you haven't already, to attend ESX in Nashville. It's coming quickly. It's less than a month away. It will be June 17th through 21st. The Young Security Professionals groups have a lot of great events planned during that week. We'll be meeting up on the first night, Monday evening, at Whiskey Bent Saloon for the professional groups networking reception. It's a great way to kick off the week and network with other ESA professional groups, so we hope to see you all there. The following morning, Tuesday, June 18th, the Young Security Professionals presents the Eye Opener Breakfast featuring the speaker Robert Owens. He's an international speaker, leadership development coach, and a former United States Air Force serviceman and a team leader with the elite Special Ops group. So he'll be discussing the skills required to lead and to be a positive influence. And YSP will then hold an open group meeting from 1:45 to 3:15 that afternoon. So if you have any other questions, please contact Jacqueline Sean, ESA Marketing Manager. You can reach her at 972-807-6818 or jacqueline.sean, S-I-O-N, at esaweb.org. Once again, thanks for everyone for participating in today's YSP webinar sponsored by Axis Communications. We appreciate your time. Hope you found the content useful, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks.